Let's talk about simplicity. Have you ever noticed that it seems like there are two opposing voices in our culture today? The first to consume everything you can in order to be, well, fill in the blank. Happy, enough, content, qualified, etc. And it's easy to do because never in the history of our world have we as a collective humanity acquired so much wealth. We can fly across the world in a day, order pretty much anything we want and have it in 48 hours or less. Consume foods grown from all over the world by simply going to our local grocery store. And don't get me wrong, I love all of these luxuries, but the seduction to consume and acquire can consume us. In fact, there has never been a more complicated, cluttered, or bureaucratic society than the one we live in today. The good life is often defined by how full, busy, and complicated our lives are. Modern life is not simple, it's exhausting. It is always about adding one more thing, but the more we add, the more that can go wrong. One car, one set of problems. Two cars, two sets of problems. Adding the latest and biggest and best to our lives can wreak havoc on our souls as well as our environment. That's why minimalism is so prevalent. You see, keeping it simple has fallen on hard times. And though we like the idea of simplicity, we also like our choices. Jesus teaches us that freedom is not found in having and doing, but in keeping God and His will first in our heart. So what's the definition of simplicity? Well, it's to uncomplicate and untangle my life so that I may focus on what really matters. Richard Foster, a great author, says that simplicity is the means of liberation and power to do what is right and to overcome the forces of fear and avarice. Simplicity is the only thing that sufficiently reorients our lives so that possessions can be genuinely enjoyed without destroying us. Simplicity is freedom. And we need simplicity. Let's look at some scripture. Matthew 6, verses 19 through 21 says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and dust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." Jesus is showing us here that we don't need the things or experiences we think we do, because life becomes so much simpler by keeping first things first, Jesus and His kingdom. Have you ever noticed that the oldest in our society seem to get this the most? That's because aging has always been about simplifying and letting go. Sooner or later, we realize that we can't manage all the stuff and activity anymore. We have to let go. The practice of letting go and embracing simplicity is one way we prepare ourselves for what is to come. Because one day, we will all have to let go of everything, even our own breath. It will be a day of utter simplicity, a day when the importance of stuff fades. You see, learning to live simply prepares us for our last breath, while cultivating in us the freedom to truly live in the here and now. Another scripture, Mark 10, verse 21, says, "One thing you lack," Jesus said. "Go sell everything you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me." See, throughout history, followers of Jesus have intentionally vowed to live simply, following the example of the Lord. They've given up comfort, possessions, and the clutter of life to leave larger space for loving God and our neighbors. Lastly, Philippians 4, verses 11 through 12 in the Message says, "Actually, I don't have a sense of needing anything personally. I've learned by now to be quite content whatever my circumstances. I'm just as happy with little as I am with much, as I am with little." You see, simplicity creates margin and space and openness in our lives. It honors the resources of our small planet. It offers us the leisure of tasting the present moment. Simplicity asks us to let go of the tangible so that we can receive the simple gifts of life that cannot be taken away. Sleeping, eating, walking, giving, and receiving love. These are the benefits that we take for granted. These are amazing gifts. And simplicity invites us into these daily pleasures that can open us to God, who is present for all of them. So let's talk about the fruit of living a simple life, or embracing simplicity. It means, firstly, being able to let go, living an uncluttered life, becoming clear, a more distilled person, creating space in your life for serving God and others, using simple, honest speech without double meaning, without being confusing, and experiencing the freedom from envy and entitlement. So this sounds great, but how do we actually embrace simplicity? Well, here's some practical ways. 1, ask God to help you to speak the simple truth. Practice speaking simply, no double meanings or half-truths that put you in the best light. Let this practice help you become aware of when you rationalize, deny, blame, and spin the truth. 2, uncomplicate your life by choosing a few areas in which you practice letting go. Clean out the garage, the basement, the closet, or the attic. 3, go on a simple vacation, or maybe eat more simply. What is this like for you? Intentionally limit your choices. Do you really need 6 different kinds of breakfast cereal, hundreds of TV channels, or 4 tennis rackets? What is it like to limit your choices? Does it feel free, or do you want and envy what's on the surface? Talk to God about this. If someone admires something of yours, maybe consider giving it away. Find out just how attached you are to your things. What is that like for you? If you can get by on what you need, or would you rather acquire more? Maybe consider making a catalog of all the gadgets that you have in your home, from the dishwasher to the lawnmower. What gadgets have made you freer? Which could you share? Which could you get rid of and actually not really miss? Also consider, where have you complicated your life with God? What things actually bring you into the presence of Christ? Spend more time there and do less of everything else. Practice giving no excuses, no apologies, no spontaneous yeses. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. When you're tempted to say yes, stop yourself and say, let me think about this for a moment. I'll get back to you in 10 minutes. Even 10 minutes can afford you the time to consider whether you really want to say yes. This is simplicity. When you're tempted to apologize for something like a messy house, don't. An apology can give the impression that your house is always neat and clean. Perhaps people need to see that you do live with a certain amount of clutter, and that's okay. When you want to make an excuse for something like being late or eating on the run, just let the excuse go. Accept yourself and the reality of your life. No excuses, no apologies, and no spontaneous yeses can actually be a step in discerning what you truly need to apologize for. This creates simplicity in our souls as well as our environments. And if you're looking for more resources, the majority of this teaching came from a book called Spiritual Disciplines Handbook by Adele Alberg Calhoun. And you can also check out The Way of Simplicity, the Cistercian Tradition by Esther